right. So I'm showing you a video today, ladies and gentlemen, in the Master League Premiere. One of my favorite Master League formats. I typically don't really touch Master League much these days since I don't raid too often. So I don't have a lot of XL candy for legendaries or meta relevant Pokemon. But in this format, it's a little more accessible, especially if you are someone that's been playing for a while, you've been active for the community days. You might just have these Pokemon at level 50 already just by default because you have enough XL candy. But just on a side note, these mirrors, for some reason, every single time, so in a mirror match, if we're the exact same IVs in attack, it's supposed to be randomized who goes first, right? But just based on me playing this team and getting some Mamoswine leads, it seems like I always win the CMP tie. I don't know if that's because I throw before my opponent or if that has anything to do with it. I have no clue. But then I was wondering, I mean, I have a purified Mamoswine here. I'm wondering if that has anything to do with it. Like, is there something in the coding where if you're a purified Pokemon and you share the same attack IV as your mirror, do you always go first? I'm not entirely sure. I didn't even like. I should have at least Googled this before I mentioned this in the video. I might sound crazy even saying this, but yeah, I was just wondering because it should, from what I remember, it should be back and forth, right? Like it should be a coin flip. Maybe I'm just getting very lucky with that coin flip in these scenarios, but yeah. So as you'll see, I'm in the mirror, and my opponent decides to switch out into Swampert, which is a great opportunity for me to bring in Gyarados, and I am running Dragon Breath Gyarados. I think it's a pretty good safe swap option in the format with the dragons running around. I mean, it can be a little problematic against the fairy type for sure, but that we're not really going to be too concerned about the fairy type. We're going to just try our best to not. I mean, it's going to happen occasionally, I guess. So it's more the way I like to look at this is if it doesn't happen just yet, I'm not going to worry about it. So obviously there's Metagross in this format as well, which aren't too unpopular. So even though Togekiss and there might be occasionally a Gardevoir, maybe Sylveon, I feel like Togekiss is our main Charmer that's going to be in the format. And while that can be a problem for Garchomp, it's not necessarily a huge issue for everything else on the team. But yeah, you'll kind of see how these battles play out. So this first set, I actually kind of got punished in the Great League. It's one of the main reasons why I decided to try out Master League Premier again. I got destroyed when I lobbied. After that Charizard video I made, I went 0-5, and I think 0-5 twice in a row. I'm not even kidding. And yeah, some of the matches definitely were on me, but I saw stuff, like I didn't even understand what was going on in Great League anymore. I swear, like, the things I saw, I haven't seen all season. Like a Shadow Alone Ninetales lead, which, you know, I don't think is necessarily bad or anything, but it was just the way the teams were structured. They felt like the algorithm, like, it's like, I don't want to sit here and say like the algorithm is real or anything, but it felt like Niantic saw my YouTube video and just like tried to punish me. Like, but like, that's not actually what happened. It's funny to think. To me, it's kind of funny to think that's what happened, but it didn't happen that way. It's just, that's how the game realistically is, right? So I decided to jump into the Master League Premiere and see, hey, it can't get worse than this. And honestly, I had a lot of fun running this team so far. I do enjoy Master League Premiere, like I was stating a little bit earlier. There's definitely some unique Pokemon that can be core breakers in this format. I don't have a lot of Stardust available right now, and I was originally looking at my Dragonite that I have as a hundo. That's a lucky trade that I have not maxed yet, and I was considering on maxing it for this format. But then I thought about it. I'm like, well, in a format like Master League where we don't really have as many options as Great League, I don't know if I want to run the top pick because it's not that, it's a good pick in the format, but most people are going to be trying to take down Dragonite in this. And yeah, that's why I didn't really want to build my Dragonite and decided to just look what I had. I already had Garchomp maxed out. I had Gyarados maxed out. And I have Mamoswine, which isn't a best buddy currently. So that in itself can help with the mirror CMPs. If I had a best buddy ribbon and my opponent doesn't, then that means I'm one level higher and I can always win the CMP because my attack will always be higher. But I decided just to make my Gyarados the best buddy for my stage swap. No particular reason. I just figured maybe there's some breakpoints it gets versus certain things. I don't know. Like maybe I just wanted to have that little extra bit of bulk on my stage swap because I can't really put it on my lead. But yeah, Garchomp is pretty good aside sometimes getting extremely walled by the Togekiss. I have seen people run Fire Blast in the past and definitely catch people off guard. But yeah, so in this match, fortunately, in this one I kind of I meant to like comment a little bit more on that, but I feel like I needed to farm down a little bit more when I had the momentum, because that was just kind of, I almost got to the Earth Power on Garchomp, but it was just a little too behind for the Metagross to remove me. So GG's to them, and yeah, I think this is one of my first sets. Yeah, I think this is like my first set actually still of when I was trying out this team for the first time. So I'm not like too unfamiliar with this format. It's just it's been a while since I've played it, so I'm a little rusty. But I do have a good idea how the matchups play out in the format. And yeah, honestly, this team was working out pretty decent whenever I was playing, because it seemed that, at least at the time, a lot of the leads I was seeing weren't really too good against Mamoswine. Occasionally like a Gyarados with Waterfall, but I always safe swapped a Gyarados, and I feel like Gyarados safe swap is pretty solid because there's not too many things that want to switch into it. Like, yeah, of course you can bring in certain aspects, but you have to pay attention to the move first, which at that point gives the Gyarados a slight amount of energy advantage. But sometimes people just insta swap. I don't know. It could be give and take. But yeah, here I decide I have to pretty much just shield the Garchomp. It's the play because I'm almost at my energy and I can just remove the Dragonite with our Earth Power. So yeah, this is the first set and it was a 4-1. I actually, after dropping those 2-0-5 sets in Great League, I think I mentioned that, right? I mentioned that the reason why I started doing this is because I had some pretty poor sets in Great League. And honestly, it's more just that I'm not really a big fan of the current meta also in Great League. And sometimes it's better to play in a format like this, where there's a more designated meta that's a smaller range of like how you can play around it and structure your team, versus in the Open Great League where you just kind of sometimes get the most wild opponents running things that just completely destroy you. So yeah, what I'm trying to get at is this is actually a good format to, if you have the resources and you have the Pokemon to at least build a somewhat decent team that can compete relatively well. You can pretty much up your skill level and plays a lot more in a more condensed meta, because it's easier to kind of understand why you misplayed, and you know, it's not just like you're left with a feeling of what could I have possibly done. Of course there's going to be some bad alignment matches, but I think the way this team is currently structured, it's pretty good. I mean, it's hard for me to think that someone's going to directly just lead some crazy like scenario like a fighter or a fire type potentially with all the Gyarados and Dragonite running around as a lead. We do get a bad lead here with Shadow Metagross, so I'm going to safe swap into Gyarados because that is my designated safe swap on the team. Occasionally I might bring in Garchomp if my opponent switches in something that I can just destroy it with, but in this situation, this is looking pretty solid so far because I know we can take one Rock Slide to the face, which I opt on doing, and I'm going to continue to pressure this Excadrill's shield with Aqua Jet. And I think I decide it's best for me to just flip the switch here, since I know I can now shield. Me being able to take that first Rock Slide allows me to outpace, because Excadrill gains energy so much faster. And from here, they pretty much, the Metagross has to throw a move if they don't want to just get smacked by a Crunch. And at this point, I see an opportunity to just bring Garchomp. I don't really know what the backline could be, but I'm thinking no matter what it is, Mamoswine particularly probably has a decent matchup against it. So they do have Gyarados, so I'm just going to keep Garchomp in, knowing that most of its moves aren't going to do too much damage. I mean, Crunch may be doing the most. Unless it had Outrage, of course. Sometimes they do run Outrage for that reason. But yeah, at this point, I know I can kind of come in with my Mamo. I guess the way I was looking at it was I wanted to preserve Garchomp for Metagross, the worst case scenario. So that's pretty much what ends up happening here, is I sacrificed my Mamoswine, and then I knew I only needed like 3 or 4 more mud shots, and I can easily get to that with my shield, and GG. So Togekiss lead, yeah, see, at least at the time when I was lobbying, some really favorable matchups for me, and I waited until I knew this Swampert was going to throw a Hydro before switching Gyarados, because not only does it give my Mamoswine more energy and put me ahead further, I waste this Swampert's energy tanking a move that Gyarados can easily take, and puts me in a much better scenario to kind of just flip this match and have some real good momentum in the match so far. So yeah, I wasn't sure if this would have Sludge Wave or not, and I just shielded once just to be safe. And yeah, just Hydro Cannons they're throwing. Maybe they are running Earthquake, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe they're running Earthquake because this team is weak, particularly to Metagross. I could see that being a thing. But I don't know if you necessarily even need to run Earthquake on Swampert in this format, like legitimately. Like I feel like you'd only run it for Metagross for the most part. Maybe like Garchomp, but like I still feel like Hydro Cannon, I mean, Swampert, a Pokemon that's always been insanely fast and good. But yeah, in this scenario, I do get kind of fortunate that my Garchomp can't. I'm just gonna let Garchomp go here. I think what I do is I just bring in Mamo, knowing that all I gotta do is get an Avalanche off. They switch directly to Togekiss. They have energy on Togekiss, so this actually worked out pretty good for me because they were trying to get my shield, but I guess they panicked, and yeah, that just didn't work out the way they intended it to work out. Oh, Magnezone. So Magnezone's a really cool Pokemon in this format for sure. I've been thinking about, I have a Hundo, but it's a Magnemite, and I've been wanting to keep that for Great League. And I do have another Magnezone I used to run in Master League when it was level 40. It's not perfect IVs, but I've been thinking about maxing it. I'm not entirely sure though. But Magnezone's pretty cool in this format. It's running Mirror Shot, which is good bait. If it ran Flash Cannon, I feel like that would be really scary. But I don't know if there's a reason why they don't run Flash Cannon. Maybe they need the bait with the Wild Charge combo in certain scenarios to be able to win. But yeah, this team was a little tricky. I should have just taken that, I think. Because, yeah, I should have just taken that Aqua Tail because I ended up kind of thinking I either should have thrown energy there or taken the move, because I pretty much just misplayed. And for some reason, it threw out my Gyarados there. Like, I knew I wasn't going to have much luck in the end game before. I swear I did not click on Gyarados to bring in there. And I just quit at that point. So yeah, I mean, a little embarrassing, but not actually that embarrassing. It's just, it happens. So yeah, but Magnezone's a really cool pick. I don't want to like, I don't want to downplay that match because my opponent definitely played it really well. It wasn't like I just messed up and I quit. Like they were pretty much gonna win that battle. And then me throwing in the Gyarados there was just like, why am I here? I don't think I should be here right now. But yeah, I love the Dragon Breath Gyarados because this team pretty much, I want to make a team that can just destroy Dragonites, I guess. I guess that's kind of the idea behind this team. Garchomp, I'm not necessarily a huge advocate of I'm not running Dragon Tail, I'm running Mudshot. But it still has the potential to do damage to Dragonites because it can hit it with an Outrage, of course, which is scary. But yeah, I think the idea of my team was I want to be able to deal with Metagross and Dragonites, which honestly, I've seen them in a lot of these matches, but I feel like as I climbed a bit, people got a little more creative with how they were going to bring their team of 3. A lot of Excadrill too, which I think is really cool. Definitely a tough Pokemon to use, really strong, really fast, but it's not easy to use in any regard. It's just also kind of frail. So another 4-1, and then this morning I decided to wake up and choose Violence. And yeah, I get the Togekiss lead. I instantly switch in Gyarados here on the safe swap. And as you can see, it's the waterfall variant, which the difference between the fast attack damage is pretty much what makes this a really good safe swap scenario. Crazy enough, they are running Outrage, and I'm thankful I did shield that. I mean, I typically will try to shield one of the crunches, but yeah, that was kind of crazy. In comes Togekiss, and it's not that I want I don't really want Togekiss to get too much farm, but I don't really have much of an option at this point. So I'm just throwing as much damage as I can with Aqua Tail. And we do a pretty good amount. I mean, Togekiss is almost gone at this point. I actually decide to not shield, thinking this is probably the better scenario. But they end up having Haxorus in the back. And they threw an Aura Sphere as well. Like, I actually thought maybe it would be like an Ancient Power or a Flamethrower, and I was like, maybe I'll barely live it and I can preserve my shield. But yeah, this actually is kind of problematic because I don't know if I shielded and threw an Avalanche, got one shield. Maybe if I baited and threw an Outrage, I could have won that. But yeah, that was like really tough. Haxorus was a legendary Pokemon to use in this format back in the day. I remember when I got 10 in the world. If you want to check out that video too, I have it on my YouTube from years ago. I got 10 in the world in this format like a couple years ago whenever Haxorus first got introduced in the game. So yeah, that was a crazy time. It was a pretty big core breaker at that point in this format. I don't know if so much these days, but yeah, it definitely was like insane back then. So they switch out into their Dragonite here, and that's an amazing scenario for me. I'm not too afraid with my 2 shields. Honestly, this is looking pretty dang good. I am going to commit my shield, and I think it's even best that I just kind of like double shield and farm down. I think that's what I do. Because they have Gyarados in the back, and even though that's the case, I'm not too afraid of it with Garchomp. So yeah, because Garchomp, for the most part, Gyarados don't run Outrage. The chance of it running Outrage is not impossible, but as you can tell, they don't have it. They knew they weren't going to be able to flip that match, so they just leave. Alright, so I get the Togekiss lead, and they switch in Gyarados with Waterfall, and I'm going to bring in my Dragon Breath Gyarados. This is a really good scenario for me. I connect the Crunch, and I could shield once here, just to really preserve my Gyarados into the Togekiss, but I pretty much know that at this point I can just go for an Aqua Tail and farm down if they do shield. And like getting a shield here is pretty good, so I'll just trade it, and at this point I don't give too much farm down to the Togekiss, which will put me in a better scenario whenever I can bring back in Mamoswine. Because Togekiss doesn't generate energy fast enough to really be too threatening to Mamoswine, even though it has some good charge moves to deal with it. I could have just insta-swapped immediately to Garchomp here, but I just figured, why not just throw the Avalanche? It probably wasn't necessary considering that they didn't shield, but at the same time, pretty good scenario. Yeah, at this point it doesn't truly matter. I mean, it could be bad if the Togekiss by chance could somehow get to 2 moves, but the thing is, it's not really going to be able to outpace the Powder Snow from my fast attacks. Even though it's so close to a second move, it's not going to be able to get it. GG's. Also, if you're watching this and you enjoy this video, please consider hitting that like button. It does help my content out a lot here on the platform. And if you're also watching, I have a very interesting surprise video I'm releasing on May 3rd here, this Friday coming up. So it's something a little bit different than my normal GBL content, but I think you'll enjoy it. So definitely put on the notifications or come check out my channel on Friday to see the video that I posted. But yeah, I'll be posting up to then, hopefully. But I am excited. It's something I've been working on for a little bit. And yeah, it should be, hopefully you'll get a laugh out of it, at least. And in this battle, I'm going to bring Gyarados on that Gyarados. Having both shields just puts me in such a good scenario. I'm not going to bother even committing a shield against the crunch. They do get the defense drop. I'm going to probably switch out immediately here. They do have Garchomp in the back, and that's so good for me because knowing that they have the Excadrill as the lead, this puts me in such a good scenario because I have 2 shields. This will be enough to deal with Excadrill, and Garchomp is 4 times weak to ice. So yeah, that's just going to be a GG. I'll shield against the Garchomp here. I think it's Sand Tomb. And then I'll hit it with the Avalanche, and that's just going to be GG. Alright, I think I have one more battle for this video. So we get the Gyarados lead. I think this is Waterfall variant. Okay, no, it's actually Dragon Breath. So I insta-swap to mine, and they do decide to stay in on mine, which made me think maybe they don't have a way to deal with Gyarados in the back, or maybe they're afraid of dragon pressure, like a dragon pressure move. So I decided just to take it, whatever. And yeah, at this point, I think I do let the Gyarados just take me out with Aqua Tail. I decided, I guess the way I was looking at this was maybe I can just get a farm on Mamoswine, and hopefully the back line I can deal with it. So there's a Metagross here, and I'm just going to throw the high horsepower, and they do shield, which I expected. I don't want to take too much damage from Bullet Punch, excuse me, and I got so lucky with the back line. It ends up being Garchomp in the back. They don't respect the outrage, and they just end up quitting, and that's a GG. Yeah, Garchomp was a perfect closer for me against their line, and it did help me climb up a little bit, even though I'm still pretty much stuck in the same elo I've been for weeks. If you like this video, definitely consider subscribing, and the Sass Squad's getting stronger each and every day. You have a good morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you're tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next one. If you want to watch more Go Battle League content from me, consider watching this video right here and this video right here.